Fear. It sneaks into our hearts. It whispers the worst possible future and makes us believe it's already real. But what if most of the pain we feel is only in our imagination? That's what the great Stoic philosopher Seneca once taught. And his lesson could change the way you deal with fear forever. Let me take you back to ancient Rome. The city was alive with noise. Horses on cobblestone streets, merchants shouting, soldiers marching. And among the great thinkers of that time was Seneca, a man who spent years advising powerful leaders, but who also struggled deeply with fear. Seneca was not born fearless. In fact, he often worried about things that might happen: political enemies, illness, losing wealth, death itself. Like you and me, he knew what it felt like to be trapped inside his own thoughts. One day, a young student came to Seneca, his face pale, his hands shaking. "Master," he said, "I cannot sleep. I fear what tomorrow may bring. I fear failure, betrayal, poverty. I fear everything." Have you ever felt that way? That no matter how much you try, your mind keeps imagining the worst? Seneca looked at the young man and said something powerful. He told him, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that. We suffer twice, once in the mind and once in reality, but the first suffering is usually far greater. Seneca explained further. He said, "Most of our fears are about things that will never even happen. We picture disasters, losses, and tragedies, but life rarely plays out the way we fear." He gave an example. Imagine a man who fears losing his job. Every day he walks into work with his heart racing. He cannot enjoy his meals. He cannot laugh with his family. And yet, he still has the job. The suffering he feels is not from reality, but from imagination. Seneca asked his student, "Why add extra pain to your life? Why live through 100 deaths in your mind when nature requires only one?" The young man listened, and slowly the color returned to his face. Because in that moment, he realized something. Fear was not controlling the world around him. Fear was controlling him. Now pause for a moment and think about your own life. How many nights have you lost sleep, replaying what might go wrong? How many times have you avoided taking a chance just because of fear? Maybe you didn't speak up in class or at work. Maybe you didn't tell someone how you really feel. Maybe you didn't take that leap of faith because your mind told you stories of failure. But here's the truth Seneca wanted us to see. Fear is nothing more than a shadow. It looks big, it feels heavy, but it has no real substance. Seneca himself practiced something unusual to fight fear. From time to time, he would live as if he had lost everything. He wore simple clothes. He ate plain bread. He slept on the ground. Why? Because he wanted to remind himself that even if the worst happened, he could still endure. And once he realized that, fear lost its power over him. This is a practice we can all try. When fear whispers, "What if I lose everything?" answer it by asking, "So what? Will I still be alive? Will I still breathe, eat, walk, love?" Often, the worst we imagine is not as unbearable as we think. Let me tell you a modern story. There was a young woman preparing for a big presentation. The night before, she imagined everything going wrong, forgetting her lines, people laughing, her boss being disappointed. She barely slept. But the next day, when she finally stood in front of the crowd, something surprising happened. Her voice shook at first, but then she gained rhythm. People listened, they nodded, and when she finished, they clapped. All those sleepless hours, all that fear, for nothing. Her imagination made her suffer far more than reality ever did. And this is where Seneca's lesson hits the deepest. He said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." When we are controlled by fear, we are not living, We are trapped between yesterday's regret and tomorrow's worry. But when we face fear, we come back to the only moment we truly have, now. Fear says, what if? Wisdom says, even if. Even if things go wrong, I will endure. Even if I fall, I will rise. Even if I lose, I will still live with courage. So the next time fear grips your heart, remember Seneca's words. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Ask yourself, is this fear real, or is it just a story in my head? Do not let your mind bully you with pictures of pain that hasn't happened. Live this moment. Breathe in today. Face life as it comes, not as your fear paints it, because fear only has the power you give it. And once you see through its illusion, you are free. So remember, my friend, fear may knock on your door, but courage is choosing not to invite it in. Live fully, live bravely, and never forget Seneca's timeless Stoic lesson. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality.